You have to take the wheel. If your life is headed in the wrong direction, who is holding the wheel? Because if you're not steering your future, someone or something already is. Today, you'll discover why most people spend years reacting to life instead of directing it, and how taking control of your decisions can completely change the course of your future. Let me ask you something. If your life continues on its current path for the next 5 years, will you be proud of where it leads? Or is it time to take the wheel back? Stay with me, because this message may change how you see responsibility forever. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must face a difficult truth. The circumstances around them may not be entirely their fault, but the responsibility for what happens next belongs to them. This realization is not always comfortable. In fact, it can be one of the most challenging lessons a person ever learns. Yet it is also one of the most liberating. Because the moment you accept responsibility for your life is the moment you begin reclaiming power over it. Many people spend years searching for the reason they are not where they want to be. They point to the economy, their upbringing, their education, their environment, their lack of opportunities, the mistakes of others, the unfairness of life. And while some of those factors may have genuinely influenced their journey, there is a dangerous trap hidden within that way of thinking. The trap is this: when you give all the power to circumstances, you remove all the power from yourself. If your situation is entirely controlled by external forces, then your future is dependent on forces you cannot control, and that creates helplessness. Personal responsibility breaks that cycle. It does not mean pretending life is fair. It does not mean ignoring challenges. It does not mean denying that obstacles exist. It simply means recognizing that regardless of what has happened, you still possess the ability to choose your response. And that choice changes everything. The most successful people in any field eventually reach a point where they stop asking who is to blame and start asking, what can I do now? That question is powerful because it shifts attention from the past to the future. Blame looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. Blame focuses on problems. Responsibility focuses on solutions. Blame creates excuses. Responsibility creates action. Consider how often people become trapped by the belief that someone else must change before their life can improve. They wait for better circumstances, better leadership, better opportunities, better conditions. They believe their progress is dependent on something outside themselves. As a result, they spend years waiting. The problem with waiting is that life continues moving. Days pass, months pass, years pass, and nothing changes because the person has surrendered ownership of their future. Responsibility changes that mindset completely. It says, I may not control everything, but I control something. And often, that something is enough to begin creating change. You control your attitude. You control your effort. You control your habits. You control your decisions. You control your willingness to learn. You control your willingness to grow. You control your response to adversity. Those things may seem small compared to major life challenges, but they are incredibly powerful because they are within your influence. One of the greatest benefits of personal responsibility is that it restores confidence. Confidence is not built through wishful thinking. It is built through evidence. Every time you take ownership of a situation, you create evidence that you are capable of handling challenges. Every time you stop making excuses and start taking action, you strengthen your belief in yourself. Every time you solve a problem instead of complaining about it, you increase your sense of control. Over time, this creates a completely different mindset. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstances, you begin seeing yourself as an active participant in shaping your future. This does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. Challenges still appear. Disappointments still happen. Unexpected setbacks still occur. But your relationship with those challenges changes. Rather than asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what can this teach me? Rather than asking, who caused this? You begin asking, what can I do about it? Those questions lead to growth, and growth creates progress. One reason responsibility is so powerful is because it forces honesty. It requires you to examine your habits, your choices, your routines, your attitudes, your behaviors. That examination can be uncomfortable. Most people would rather blame external factors than confront internal weaknesses. Blame protects the ego. Responsibility develops character. And character is what ultimately determines the quality of your life. The truth is that transformation begins with ownership. You cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot solve problems you are unwilling to confront. You cannot create a better future while denying your role in creating the present. Ownership creates awareness. Awareness creates change. Change creates results. This principle applies to every area of life. If your finances are struggling, responsibility asks what habits need improvement. If your health is declining, responsibility asks what choices need adjustment. If your goals remain unfulfilled, responsibility asks what actions are missing. The focus always returns to one central question: what can I do next? That question is empowering because it places control back where it belongs, within you. Too many people spend their lives waiting for perfect conditions before taking action. But perfect conditions rarely arrive. The people who achieve meaningful success understand that progress begins with responsibility, not perfection. They take ownership before circumstances improve. They act before they feel completely ready. They make changes before guarantees exist, because they understand something profound. Responsibility is the beginning of transformation. The moment you stop blaming and start owning, your life begins moving in a different direction. The moment you stop waiting and start acting, opportunities begin appearing. The moment you take the wheel instead of sitting in the passenger seat, your future becomes something you can influence rather than something you merely experience. Life may not always give you the road you wanted. It may not always provide ideal conditions. It may not always seem fair. But regardless of where you begin, responsibility gives you the ability to choose where you go next. And that choice is where real transformation begins. Because the day you fully accept responsibility for your direction is the day you stop being carried by life and start leading it. One of the greatest dangers in life is not failure. It is not rejection. It is not even making the wrong decision. The greatest danger is drifting. It is moving through life without intention, without direction, and without conscious control over where you are going. Because when you fail to choose your direction, life has a way of choosing it for you, and the destination it chooses is rarely the one you truly want. Most people do not wake up one morning and decide to live below their potential. They do not intentionally choose mediocrity. They do not consciously decide to abandon their dreams or settle for less than they are capable of becoming. Instead, something much more subtle happens. They stop steering. They begin reacting rather than directing. They allow circumstances to determine their choices. They allow comfort to determine their habits. They allow fear to determine their actions. They allow distractions to determine their priorities. And little by little, they drift away from the life they once imagined. Drifting is dangerous because it feels harmless in the beginning. There is no alarm, no warning signal, no dramatic collapse. In fact, drifting often feels comfortable. It requires no difficult decisions, no uncomfortable risks, no intentional effort. You simply go wherever the current takes you. The problem is that currents rarely carry people toward extraordinary lives. A boat without a captain may move. It may travel many miles. It may appear active. But activity is not the same as direction. Movement is not the same as progress. Without guidance, the boat simply follows whatever forces happen to influence it. Many people live this way. They spend years staying busy, but making little progress. They work hard, but lack purpose. They move constantly, but remain stuck. They wake up each day, reacting to whatever demands their attention, instead of pursuing what truly matters. Then years later, they wonder how they arrived at a destination they never intended to reach. The answer is often simple. They never chose a direction. Life is filled with forces, constantly attempting to influence your path. Other people's opinions, social expectations, cultural pressures, temporary emotions, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of uncertainty, distractions, comfort, convenience. If you do not consciously decide where you are going, these forces will gladly decide for you. That is why intentional living is so important. Success is rarely accidental. Fulfillment is rarely accidental. Growth is rarely accidental. These outcomes are usually the result of deliberate choices made consistently over time. Think about any meaningful achievement: a successful career, a thriving business, financial independence, physical health, strong relationships, personal growth. None of these happen by chance. They happen because someone chose a direction and repeatedly moved toward it. Direction provides clarity, and clarity creates power. When you know where you are going, decisions become easier. You begin evaluating opportunities differently. You become more selective with your time. You become more disciplined with your habits. You become more aware of distractions. Why? Because every choice is measured against a destination. Without a destination, every path appears equally valid. With a destination, priorities become obvious. Imagine getting into a car with no idea where you want to go. You could drive all day. You could burn fuel. You could stay busy. You could cover many miles. But without a destination, none of that movement guarantees progress. Now imagine entering the same vehicle with a clear destination. Suddenly, every turn matters. Every road matters. Every decision matters. The destination provides meaning to the journey. Life works the same way. One reason many people struggle is because they have never clearly defined where they want to go. They know what they dislike. They know what frustrates them. They know what they want to escape. But they have not clearly identified what they want to create. And without a vision, it becomes easy to drift. Vision creates focus. Focus creates action. Action creates results. The future belongs to those who intentionally design it. Another danger of drifting is that time amplifies the consequences. A wrong turn today may not seem significant. A missed opportunity may appear small. A neglected habit may seem harmless. But over months and years, these small choices accumulate. The person who continually postpones growth eventually falls behind. The person who repeatedly chooses comfort over development eventually limits their potential. The person who refuses to make decisions eventually allows circumstances to make them. And circumstances rarely prioritize your dreams. This is why taking control of your direction matters so much. It requires courage, because choosing a direction means accepting responsibility. Once you decide where you want to go, excuses become less convincing. Blame becomes less useful. Complaining becomes less productive. You begin focusing on progress rather than explanations. That shift changes everything. People often wait until they feel confident before making decisions. But confidence usually comes after commitment, not before it. The person who chooses a direction gains confidence by moving forward. They learn through action. They adjust through experience. They grow through challenges. Waiting for certainty often leads to paralysis. Choosing a direction creates momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. You do not need to have every answer. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need complete certainty. What you need is direction, a reason to move, a destination worth pursuing, a vision strong enough to guide your decisions. Because the truth is simple. Life is always moving. The days continue passing. The years continue unfolding. The question is not whether you are traveling. The question is whether you are steering. If you fail to choose your direction, distractions will choose it. Comfort will choose it. Fear will choose it. Circumstances will choose it. And one day you may find yourself somewhere you never intended to be. But when you decide to take control, everything changes. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You stop surrendering your future to chance. You become intentional, purposeful, focused. And from that moment forward, your life begins moving toward a destination you consciously chose. Because the future is not something that simply happens. It is something that is shaped by the directions you choose today. And the moment you choose your direction, you take the wheel of your life back into your own hands. Every person wants a better future. They want more success, greater fulfillment, stronger relationships, improved finances, better health, and a life they can be proud of. Yet one of the greatest misunderstandings about success is the belief that destiny is determined by a few major moments. People often imagine that life changes because of one extraordinary opportunity, one perfect decision, one lucky break, or one dramatic event. But that is rarely how life works. The truth is much more practical. Your destination is determined by your decisions. Not one decision, not an occasional decision, but the thousands of decisions you make every day. Life is a lot like driving a vehicle. When you are behind the wheel, you rarely make one giant turn that instantly changes your destination. Instead, you make a series of small adjustments, a slight turn here, a minor correction there. Tiny movements that seem insignificant in the moment. Yet over time, those small adjustments determine exactly where you arrive. The same principle applies to life. Every decision acts like a turn of the steering wheel. Every choice influences direction. Every action moves you either closer to your goals or further away from them. Most people underestimate this because they focus on immediate consequences. A single decision often appears harmless. Skipping one workout seems insignificant. Avoiding one difficult task seems harmless. Wasting 1 hour seems unimportant. Spending a little extra money seems manageable. Procrastinating for 1 day seems harmless. And individually, those choices may not create visible consequences. But life is not shaped by isolated decisions. It is shaped by repeated decisions. Repeated choices become habits. Habits become patterns. Patterns become lifestyles, and lifestyles create destinations. That is why your future is often hidden inside your daily choices. Imagine two individuals beginning at the exact same place. They possess similar abilities, similar opportunities, similar resources. At first, their lives look almost identical, but one begins making slightly better decisions. They read instead of scrolling. They save instead of overspending. They exercise instead of remaining inactive. They learn instead of complaining. They act instead of procrastinating. None of these decisions seem life-changing on a single day. Yet after months and years, the difference becomes extraordinary. One person's life begins expanding. The other's remains stagnant. The destination changed because the decisions changed. This is one of the most empowering truths a person can learn. Your future is not determined solely by circumstances. It is heavily influenced by your choices. Many people spend years blaming conditions while ignoring decisions. They focus on things outside their control while neglecting the power they already possess. They worry about the economy, other people, past mistakes, unfair situations. While those factors can influence outcomes, they do not fully determine them. Your response remains yours to choose, and your response often matters more than the situation itself. Successful people understand something that others frequently overlook. They realize that every decision is a vote for the person they are becoming. Every action reinforces an identity. When you choose discipline, you strengthen the identity of a disciplined person. When you choose learning, you strengthen the identity of a learner. When you choose responsibility, you strengthen the identity of a leader. Likewise, every negative decision reinforces a different identity. Every excuse strengthens the habit of avoiding responsibility. Every delay strengthens procrastination. Every act of carelessness strengthens mediocrity. This is why decisions matter so much. They are not merely shaping outcomes. They are shaping character, and character ultimately shapes destiny. One reason many people struggle with decision-making is because they become overwhelmed by the future. They worry about where they will be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The future feels enormous. The path seems uncertain. The destination appears distant. But success is not built by focusing exclusively on distant outcomes. Success is built by making the next right decision. One choice, one action, repeated consistently. Think about a pilot guiding an aircraft. The pilot does not spend every second worrying about the final destination. Instead, they focus on maintaining the correct course. Small corrections are made continually. Tiny adjustments keep the aircraft moving in the desired direction. Life requires the same approach. The goal is not perfection. The goal is correction. You will make mistakes. Everyone does. You will occasionally make poor decisions. You will encounter setbacks. You will experience failures. But one wrong turn does not determine the entire journey. What matters is your willingness to adjust, to learn, to improve, to keep steering. Many people allow a few mistakes to convince them that the journey is over. But successful people understand that direction matters more than temporary setbacks. A wrong turn can be corrected. A mistake can become a lesson. A failure can become wisdom. As long as you continue steering, progress remains possible. Another powerful truth is that decisions compound. Just like money can grow through compound interest, good decisions create compounded benefits. A decision to read today improves your knowledge. Improved knowledge influences future decisions. Better decisions create better opportunities. Better opportunities create better outcomes. The effects continue expanding. One wise decision often creates another, and another, and another. The same is true in reverse. Poor decisions also compound. This is why small choices deserve attention. The future is not created by one massive event. It is created by the accumulation of countless decisions. The conversations you have, the books you read, the habits you develop, the people you spend time with, the thoughts you entertain, the actions you repeat. All of them are turns of the wheel. All of them are influencing direction. And over time, they determine where you arrive. The remarkable thing is that you do not need to change your entire life today. You simply need to make better decisions today, one at a time, one choice at a time, one habit at a time. Because your destination is not determined by what you intend to do. It is determined by what you actually choose. Every day you are turning the wheel. Every day you are shaping your future. Every day you are moving toward a destination. The question is not whether your decisions matter. The question is whether they are moving you toward the life you truly want. Because years from now, the destination you reach will largely be the result of the choices you made when nobody was watching. And that is why every decision deserves your attention. Because every decision is steering your life. One of the most important truths about success is that leadership does not begin with other people. It begins with you. Many people think of leadership as a position, a title, or a role granted by others. They imagine leaders standing in front of teams, managing organizations, influencing crowds, or directing large groups of people. While leadership can certainly include those responsibilities, true leadership begins much earlier and much closer to home. It begins with self-leadership. Before you can successfully lead a business, you must learn to lead your habits. Before you can guide a team, you must learn to guide your actions. Before you can influence others, you must learn to influence yourself. This is where many people struggle. They want greater influence but resist greater discipline. They want larger opportunities but avoid personal responsibility. They want authority without accountability. Yet leadership does not work that way. The person who cannot lead themselves will eventually struggle to lead anything else. Think about it for a moment. How can you expect others to trust your direction if you cannot consistently direct your own life? How can you inspire commitment if you rarely honor your own commitments? How can you encourage discipline if you are controlled by every passing emotion? Leadership begins with example, and the first person who experiences your example is you. Every day, your actions are either strengthening or weakening your ability to lead yourself. When you keep promises to yourself, leadership grows. When you follow through on commitments, leadership grows. When you act according to your values rather than your moods, leadership grows. These moments may appear small, but they are building something powerful. They are building character, and character is the foundation of leadership. One reason self-leadership matters so much is because life constantly presents competing influences. Distractions compete for your attention. Comfort competes with growth. Fear competes with courage. Convenience competes with discipline. Without self-leadership, these influences begin controlling your decisions. Instead of directing your life, you become reactive. You do what feels easy. You follow whatever emotion happens to be strongest in the moment. You allow circumstances to dictate your behavior. That is not leadership. That is surrender. Self-leadership means choosing your response rather than reacting automatically. It means deciding what matters most and aligning your behavior accordingly. It means acting on principles rather than impulses. Many people believe success requires extraordinary talent. While talent can help, self-leadership is often far more important. There are countless talented individuals who never reach their potential because they lack the ability to direct themselves consistently. Meanwhile, there are many ordinary individuals who achieve extraordinary things because they master discipline, consistency, and personal responsibility. The difference is often self-leadership. Consider the role self-leadership plays in goal achievement. Setting goals is relatively easy. Almost everyone has goals. The challenge is maintaining action after the excitement fades. Motivation comes and goes. Enthusiasm rises and falls. Conditions change. Obstacles appear. Without self-leadership, progress stops whenever emotions shift. But the person who has learned to lead themselves continues moving forward, not because they always feel motivated, but because they have learned to act regardless of emotion. This ability becomes one of the most valuable skills a person can develop, because life rarely rewards intentions. It rewards execution. Ideas are valuable. Plans are valuable. Dreams are valuable. But without action, they remain unrealized possibilities. Self-leadership bridges the gap between intention and action. It transforms goals into behavior, behavior into habits, habits into results. Another reason self-leadership is so powerful is because it creates trust. Trust is often discussed in relation to other people, but one of the most important forms of trust is self-trust. Do you trust yourself to follow through? Do you trust yourself to keep commitments? Do you trust yourself to remain disciplined when things become difficult? Many people struggle with confidence because they have repeatedly broken promises to themselves. They set goals, but abandon them. They make commitments, but fail to honor them. Over time, self-trust weakens. Self-leadership rebuilds that trust. Every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your belief in yourself. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, confidence grows. Every time you honor a commitment, your character becomes stronger. Eventually, you begin seeing yourself differently, not as someone who merely talks about goals, but as someone who achieves them. That identity shift is transformative because people tend to behave in alignment with who they believe they are. Self-leadership also determines how you handle adversity. Challenges are unavoidable. Disappointments are inevitable. Setbacks happen to everyone. The difference lies in how people respond. Those without self-leadership often become controlled by circumstances. They allow difficulties to define their behavior. They lose focus. They abandon progress. They surrender control. Those with self-leadership respond differently. They acknowledge challenges without surrendering to them. They adapt. They learn. They continue moving forward. Not because the situation is easy, but because they refuse to allow circumstances to become the driver of their lives. This is where true leadership reveals itself. Not during moments of comfort, not during periods of ease, but during moments of difficulty. Because leadership is ultimately about direction, and self-leadership means maintaining direction even when conditions become difficult. The remarkable thing about self-leadership is that it influences every area of life. Your health improves because you make disciplined choices. Your finances improve because you manage resources wisely. Your relationships improve because you become more intentional. Your career improves because you follow through consistently. Everything grows when leadership begins within. The future you desire requires more than dreams, more than talent, more than opportunity. It requires the ability to guide yourself, to make decisions aligned with your values, to honor commitments, to act consistently, to maintain direction. Because before you lead a company, a family, a team, or a vision, you must first master the most important leadership challenge of all, leading yourself. And when you learn to do that, you gain something more valuable than influence over others. You gain control over your own future. And that is where every great journey truly begins. If you're tired of watching your dreams stay trapped in the future, subscribe right now and make a promise to yourself today. Because one day, you'll either be proud that you took control, or you'll regret every year you spent waiting for someone else to do it for you. Many people look at their lives, their goals, their habits, and their circumstances and assume that transformation is years away. They convince themselves that becoming healthier, stronger, more disciplined, more successful, or more fulfilled requires some distant future moment that has not yet arrived. As a result, they delay action. They postpone improvement. They wait for motivation, the perfect plan, or ideal conditions. But what if the greatest changes in your life are not as far away as you think? What if 30 days of focused effort could accomplish more than years of wishing? The truth is that life can change much faster than most people realize. Not because 30 days can solve every problem, not because 1 month magically removes every obstacle, but because 30 days is long enough to create momentum, long enough to establish new patterns, long enough to prove to yourself that change is possible. And once a person begins believing change is possible, everything starts to shift. The reason many people remain stuck is not because they lack potential. It is because they underestimate the power of concentrated effort. They spend years thinking about change rather than committing to it. They make promises to themselves but rarely follow through. They dream about a different future while continuing to repeat the behaviors that created their current reality. The problem is not a lack of desire. Most people want better lives. They want better health, better finances, better relationships, greater confidence, more success. The challenge is that wanting something and working toward it are not the same thing. A wish changes nothing. Action changes everything. This is where the power of 30 days becomes remarkable. 30 days creates urgency. It creates focus. It creates a manageable window of commitment. A year may feel overwhelming. 5 years may seem impossible to imagine, but 30 days feels achievable. 30 days allows you to stop thinking about forever and start focusing on today. That shift matters because transformation does not happen in giant leaps. It happens through daily decisions, one better choice at a time. Imagine someone who has spent years neglecting their health. They do not need to lose all the weight in 30 days. They do not need a perfect body in 30 days. They simply need 30 days of better decisions, 30 days of moving more, 30 days of eating with greater intention, 30 days of honoring commitments. The physical changes may be noticeable, but the deeper transformation happens internally. They begin seeing themselves differently. They begin trusting themselves again. They begin realizing they are capable of change. That realization is powerful. The same principle applies to every area of life. A person struggling financially may not become wealthy in 30 days, but 30 days of budgeting, saving, learning, and making smarter decisions can create habits that alter their financial future. Someone lacking confidence may not become fearless in 30 days, but 30 days of keeping promises to themselves can dramatically increase self-belief. A person feeling stuck may not solve every challenge in 1 month, but they can create enough momentum to move forward. And momentum is often the missing ingredient. Many people remain trapped because they focus on the size of the mountain rather than the next step. The mountain feels overwhelming. The next step feels manageable. Success is built through steps, not wishes, not intentions, not hopes. Steps. One of the greatest lessons in personal development is that progress creates motivation more reliably than motivation creates progress. Most people wait until they feel inspired before taking action.